The final portion of the axial skeleton is known as the thoracic cage. And I think just by looking at this, you can see why they came up with that phrase. Thoracic meaning the chest, and then it does look like almost like a bird cage. So when we learn the thoracic cage, we typically start with the sternum. The sternum or breastbone is found here just in front of your heart. So one of its important jobs is to protect the heart, but there's also other organs in your chest that it helps to protect. The sternum is divided into three parts. This upper or superior region is known as the manubrium. That word manubrium actually means handle, like the handle of a sword. So someone looked at this sternum and thought it kind of looked like a sword, and that would be the handle. Then we have the region here known as the body, and then this inferior portion is known as the xiphoid process. And xiphoid actually means sword. So this would be the handle, and then this would be the sword. So that's the sternum or breastbone. There's a few really important markings on the sternum. One is known as the sternal angle. So the sternal angle is where the manubrium fused with the body. And you can palpate that. So something that's palpable is you can feel it. All right, and you can feel this little bump there. And that bump lines right up, you'll notice, with the costal cartilage of rib 2. All right, so this is rib 2. All this cartilage here is known as costal cartilage. Costal means rib. All right, now why would that be important? Well, one day you're going to learn about the heart and how we listen to heart valves. And it's very important to place the stethoscope in the proper location. And this intercostal space here, which is the space in between ribs, is one of the areas that they place a stethoscope to listen to heart valves. So in order to find this area here, this what we would call the second intercostal space, you have to know where rib 2 is. All right, so that's a very important clinical landmark. Another one is the xiphoid process. All right, the xiphoid process, we want to know where that is during chest compressions. So if you're giving CPR to someone, you want to make sure you are superior or above that xiphoid process. In many cases, if you do chest compressions on that xiphoid process, it can fracture and cause some internal injuries. All right, so that's the sternum, the three regions of the sternum, and two of the important clinical landmarks. Next thing we want to do is learn about your ribs. So there are 24 ribs total, so there's 12 on each side. You'll notice some of them attach directly to the sternum with their costal cartilage. Others attach to kind of each other. Okay, so and then there's a couple that don't attach at all. So we have kind of categories for our ribs. All right, so let's first look at ribs 1 through 7. All right, so that's kind of indicated here with the black numbers 1 through 7. These 7 ribs, so 7 on the right side, 7 on the left side, are often referred to as true ribs, but also vertebrosternal ribs. All right, now I don't really like calling some ribs true and some ribs false. To me, it's kind of disrespectful to the false ribs because they serve the same purpose and function as the true ribs. But I do like this nomenclature, vertebrosternal. What this does, it explains the two ends of the rib. One end of the rib attaches to vertebrae, so that would be the end in the back. Okay, you can't really see it very well. You can see it kind of down here, but one end of these ribs attach to the thoracic vertebrae. Then the other end attaches directly to the sternum using its very own costal cartilage. Okay? Now, when it comes to the rest of the ribs, so we're talking 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, they're often called false ribs. Again, I don't really like that, but that was just what was named based on the fact that they don't really have their own costal cartilage. But I like this nomenclature. So for 8, 9, and 10, they're known as vertebrochondral. All right, because one end attaches to vertebrae, the other end attaches to 7's cartilage. So notice 10, 9, and 8, their costal cartilage attaches to 7's, and then 7's attaches to the sternum. All right, so it's a vertebrochondral. One end attaches to vertebrae, the other end attaches to 7's cartilage. All right, then the last two, 11 and 12, they're false. They're often also called floating, and then they're also just known as vertebral ribs because they attach to vertebrae at one end, but they don't attach to anything at the other end. All right? So again, true, false, floating, that's one way to kind of categorize these ribs. But then to me, this nomenclature makes the most sense. They all attach to vertebrae, right? That's why these words all start with vertebro. And what's at the second half of the word? Sternum, cartilage, or nothing. All right? So those are the ribs and how we would classify them. This is a picture just as a single rib. One end here, they're mentioning it has a facet for costal cartilage. So this end here would be this end, all right, attaches the costal cartilage. This end, known as the head of the rib, would be attaching to the vertebra in the back, all right, and it actually has a couple little spots here that it makes contact, and then it has one facet here on what's known as the tubercle. A tubercle is a little knob. So there's a little knob-like structure here that has a little facet. So then how does this attachment work? The best picture I could show you is this. So this is a superior view, so we're above looking down. This is obviously a thoracic vertebra. Here is the end of the rib, right? The other end of the rib came around to the front and attached to, let's just say, costal cartilage. There's the knob. There's the little knob with a facet. So this little facet by the knob attaches to the transverse process. The head over here attaches to the body of the vertebra. All right, so it makes multiple connections to the thoracic vertebra. It makes one connection back here towards the tubercle, and then it makes one connection at the very end of the rib, and that attachment goes to more of the body of the vertebra. All right? Okay, so that is going to end the axial skeleton. The next video, we're going to learn the appendicular skeleton.